I'm the Michigan State Director for the Humane Society of the United States, based in Lansing, but work on issues all over the state. State Director, mainly our job is to, whatever HSUS is doing at the national level, whatever issues and campaigns we cover at the national level, I work on at the state level. So I'll go over some of the things that we cover here, but we basically just cover just about anything to do with animals, all animals. So just real briefly, because there's some misinformation going on out there about what the HSUS does. We were established in 1954. We are the nation's largest animal protection organization with about 11 million members and supporters nationwide and about 360,000 members and supporters here in the state of Michigan. You'll see our logo up there. It's kind of small there, but you've seen it around. It has 19 different animals in it to sort of symbolize that our mission is to protect all animals, not just cats and dogs, which we do very vigorously, but we also protect all animals, including wildlife, sea life, farm animals, you name it. So that's part of our mission. And the goal, again, is a more humane and sustainable world for all animals. Our motto is celebrating animals and confronting cruelty, which means that we not only rescue animals in distress and provide hands-on care and rescue for animals, but we also work at addressing the root causes of animal cruelty through legislation, litigation, education around the world. So, just some of the other things we work on. We provide a lot of animal shelter support. We provide training and professional standards and everything to do from in animal shelter volunteer management, board management, shelter sanitation. We also publish Animal Sheltering Magazine, which you'll see out on our table there. Please take a copy of that. And our website, animalsheltering.org, has tons of free resources available at everything from volunteer management to shelter architecture. So if you're looking at building a new shelter or doing whatever, we have resources available to help you there. We put on the largest animal sheltering conference in the world every year. This year it will be in Orlando in May 4th through the 7th. So I encourage everyone to attend Animal Care Expo in Orlando. We also put on a Shelter Partners program. If you join up, you get a lot of discounts on services. And then we also provide direct grants and assistance to animal shelters. So please, my card's on the table. Please see me if you have any questions about any of that. We have an animal cruelty rescue and response team that works with Homeland Security and natural disasters like hurricanes, floods, you name it. And our animal cruelty response team also works with law enforcement in large-scale cruelty cases such as animal fighting busts, puppy mill busts, sporting cases, etc. So you've probably seen a lot of these on the news recently. We've done those all over the country, even here in Michigan, and Indiana and Ohio recently as well. Our Humane Society Veterinary Medical Association provides free care in extremely underserved populations such as Native American reservations and in Appalachia and other parts of the world. We go in for a week, set up an entire full-service veterinary clinic, and provide free spay, neuter, and every kind of service imaginable for the community. And we do that around the country in conjunction with veterinary schools. And we also fund new spay-neuter programs at veterinary schools, such as at Louisiana State and Mississippi State. We helped set up after Katrina. So, we operate 6 large wildlife and animal care centers around the country, 3 wildlife care centers, 1 in Cape Cod, 1 in South Florida, and 1 in Southern California. We also operate the Dutchess Horse Sanctuary in Oregon and the Doris Day Horse Sanctuary in Texas, and the Black Beauty Ranch in Texas as well. We're one of the largest providers of wildlife care in the country, and we're currently caring for more horses than any other rescue or sanctuary provider in the country. So a lot of work in hands-on animal care as well. If you get a chance, visit our website to see all the other campaigns we work on. From animal fighting to factory farming to the fur industry, trapping, fur farming, the use of chimpanzees in research. Our wildlife abuse campaign addresses things such as pigeon shoots and captive hunting. And of course, one of our main goals is eliminating horse slaughter in the United States, so working on federal legislation in that area. So, but as far as our puppy mills campaign, we have many different areas where we try to educate the public and work with law enforcement and consumers to educate them about puppy mills. In the area of educating consumers, we have information on learning the basics of pet store doublespeak, what to look for. When you hear from pet store employees, we probably all have when you've gone in there and tried to talk to them. They'll have all sorts of excuses and reasons for where they get their animals, and just from good breeders and things like that. So we have a lot of resources on our websites on what you're going to hear and what they really mean by those things. And then also how to look through those deceptive ads from the large-scale puppy mills that you see online. So they'll always have the pretty pictures of the puppies and the cute animals and everything. But what to look for when you're looking at those. And educating people about the fact that a good, truly responsible breeder is not going to be selling their pets to pet stores anymore. They want to know who they're selling them to and where their animals are going to. They're not going to be shipping them out to a pet store. So we also feature a lot of inspiring stories on our website about folks who work to rescue puppy mill dogs, like this young guy. His dad is a veterinarian who helps our Indiana state director with a lot of puppy mill butts, so he's always in there helping with the dogs. Our Kind News, which is our publication that we put out on a website for young people, has a lot of puppy mill education on there too. And then we publish a guide, an activist guide to stopping puppy mills, which you can find on our website to help you start your own puppy mill campaign if you want to use it right in your own area. Another area that we work on puppy mills and probably much more better known is our investigations. We do undercover investigations in all kinds of puppy mills around the country. And probably the most famous one was our Petland investigation. This was the result of an 8-month investigation that we released the results of in November of 2008. We investigated and documented 322 different suppliers of almost 17,000 puppies from different breed sources going to supplying Petland stores around the country. We visited at random 35 breeding and brokering operations. These are operations, as you probably know, that are licensed by the USDA to breed or broker pets that are going to end up in pet stores. We obtained records, extensive records through the Freedom of Information Act for these breeding and brokering facilities. And we documented all sources of puppies that were sold to 76 different Petland stores. And we found 140 stores selling tens of thousands of puppies every year. We visited the stores themselves, as well as the breeders and the brokers, and we found a lot of things that are probably not surprising to a lot of you, but to the general consumer, in that the puppies that are ending up in these Petland stores are coming from massive, huge Midwest commercial breeders, many of which you already know about in sort of the puppy mill capital, as it's called, Missouri, but also other states like Minnesota, where they have some massive, horrible mills with upwards of 1,300 dogs in one location. That one in particular was shut down, unfortunately, but for the most part, they're still going. And some of the conditions that we found, again, not a surprise to most of you, were puppies living in really barren, filthy cages with wire floors, their feet falling through the floors or getting cut or stuck on the wire floors, stinking horribly of urine, and inadequate socialization, of course. We found that a lot of them are being supplied, the Petlands themselves are being supplied not directly from the breeders, but by brokers, huge Midwestern brokers who are getting animals from different sources and brokering them. And some of the puppies ordered by the Petland stores were being ordered through an auction website. So when they claim, yeah, we go in and research directly and visit these breeders ourselves and we can vouch for them, what we found through the records is they're just going to an auction website called the Pet Board of Trade and just getting the lower figures there. So, more than 60% of the inspection reports for the breeders supplying Petland had serious violations, dirty enclosures, inadequate shelter from the cold, as you can see up here, small dogs being kept outside in conditions like that, inadequate veterinary care, etc. And some of these breeders were found with sick or dead dogs in their cages.
Do you want me to comment on our Petland? We have one Petland in Michigan. It's a Novi 12 Oaks Mall, and they do work with so many different breeders, but their primary broker is in Ohio named Abe Miller, and he works with a lot of the Amish facilities in Ohio. He supplies most of the dogs to the Novi. He's a large broker with many violations.
And Pamela will go into much more detail of the research that we're doing And then mostly Pam is doing really.
His second supplier is Opal Featherstone out of Missouri, and most of their animals come from Missouri that are not coming from Ohio.
So that was the first round of our investigation. Then we did a follow-up where we started investigating the transport records of more than 15,000 puppies that were shipped to 126 Petland stores. And we did a more in-depth investigation into the brokers themselves. These are what are called Class B licensed brokers. They can obtain pets from different breeders and then sell them to the stores, and they hold them. And they also are able to breed animals as well as broker them. You've probably heard of one of them. The Hunt Corporation is one of the most notorious in Missouri, but also another one, Mid-America, Pet Broker, Tracy's, K&J, Pets, etc. All had substantial Animal Welfare Act violations, improper veterinary oversight, cramped cages, unsafe transport vehicles. And remember, these are all coming from places like Missouri, Minnesota, so you can imagine how many hours of travel came from those.
17 hours from Arkansas.
17 hours from Arkansas for these all little dogs in cages to come up to places like Novi or Westland. We found that several were purchasing from unlicensed sources. According to the Animal Welfare Act, if you are a pet store, you can only get your dogs or cats from licensed USDA licensed Class A or Class B breeders or brokers. We found that some are not. They are getting them from animals that are not, from breeders or brokers who are not licensed by the USDA. And we studied more than 100 of the individual breeders, and more than half were cited for Animal Welfare Act violations. And if you're familiar with the Animal Welfare Act, it provides some standards of care, mainly housing, food, water, ventilation, veterinary care, exercise, etc. They're not real great, but they are some standards of care. And almost half of these breeders and brokers could not even use those very basic standards of care, including caged outside, sick or injured dogs, wire flooring, a real big thing, as you can imagine. A lot of times the dogs, when they're stuck in these cages their whole life, their claws will get stuck or will go around these little these wires in the bottom of the cage floors. Sanitation, of course, rusty cages, matted, underweight. We've gone into, when we've done puppy mill busts, and you've probably seen pictures of these, where some of the dogs are so matted you can't tell what kind of dogs they are. In some cases now you can't even tell what sex they are. It's a pretty sad situation. And then you can imagine the skin conditions that are a result of that. Improper medications, that's another thing the Animal Welfare Act does stipulate, proper medication storage and veterinary records and things like that. And then outdoor runs again without adequate shelter in the winter. Another aspect of our puppy mill campaign is a puppy-friendly pet store campaign, where we approach pet stores asking them to sign a pledge saying they will no longer sell puppies in their store. They will only provide adoption options for local rescues or local animal shelters instead. Michigan, thanks to Pam, was a record holder. We have more puppy-friendly pet store pledges in the state of Michigan than any other state in the country. As far as puppy mill activism, Michigan is absolutely well ahead of the curve, by the way. And Pam would be too modest to say it, but if you get a chance out on our table, it is our most recent All Animals magazine from the HSUS. There's a feature on Pam and her work in Michigan in there. So she'll autograph a copy for you. I should have In any case, this is just another way that we use as part of our puppy mill campaign to educate pet stores and pet supply stores, such as Pet Supplies Plus did wonderful with this. Their corporate office signed the pledge. So all Pet Supplies Plus have made that promise. They won't be selling puppies, only supplies, and they have adoptions out there. So. And then they get to hang this sign in their window, and that says we support the shelter. It's really important. Another thing that we do is the HSUS Maddie's Fund Puppy Mill Task Force. This is a group of staff that work with law enforcement and animal shelters to investigate puppy mills, develop cases, and we help law enforcement once a warrant has been obtained to execute a raid, get the animals out of the situation into a safe place, whether it's a temporary shelter or directly into new homes or foster homes. And we can provide guidance to local law enforcement agencies too in the prosecution of animal abusers with regard to puppy mills. We have posters available. I'm sorry I don't have any out at the table at the moment, but we have a tip line, 1-877-MIL-TIP. Please contact us if you think there's a puppy mill in your community. We will be glad to help advise you on investigating that or working with our own investigation department to see if there's anything we can do about that. But you can visit that at our animal sheltering website, animalsheltering.org/PMTS for puppy mill transport. We work on federal legislation and state legislation with regard to puppy mills. With federal legislation in particular, a very exciting bill. It was introduced in the last session of Congress. It didn't make it through, so it just got reintroduced. But as I mentioned earlier, and you might already know this, so forgive me if I'm being repetitive, but in order for breeders or brokers to sell their pets to pet stores, they have to have a Class A or Class B license. However, if you are a breeder and you just want to sell pets directly to the public through the internet, free to go home, or ads in the newspaper, or just word of mouth, whatever it is, then there is no federal oversight or regulation whatsoever of your facility. So there was legislation introduced last session and reintroduced now called the PUPS Act, like something uniform, Pet Uniform Protection Act or something, which basically says that if you sell more than a certain amount of dogs per year, whether it's to puppies, pet stores, or to the general public, then you are automatically subject to the standards of the Animal Welfare Act, and you have to get a license to be inspected by the USDA, Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service. As I said, the standards aren't real great. They cover food, water, ventilation, vet care, exercise, etc., but at least it's something. It is some federal and oversight and some regular inspections, a yearly inspection by USDA inspectors if you are a breeder and you sell just directly to the public.
What is the number on that, of how many puppies they can?
Is it 50? I think it's 50 if you sell
Probably
50 dogs a year or more.
Is that just puppies or dogs, or?
It's just dogs, unfortunately. I don't think cats are included in that.
I mean, adults versus puppies.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I don't have the bill language in front of me.
Okay.
I'll look that up. That was introduced, it has already been introduced by Jim Gerlach, Pennsylvania Republican, and a couple other sponsors, so you want to contact your congressional representatives and ask them to support the PUPS Act. So that's pretty exciting. That will at least provide some regular inspections and federal oversight of all retail breeders as well as commercial breeders, those who sell, wholesale breeders who sell pets. As far as state laws, we work with activists around the country and helping state laws to be passed. As you can see in Iowa, the first dog helped with the signing of a recent Iowa bill. Wisconsin was very exciting. A couple of years ago, they had been working for at least 10 years in Wisconsin to try to get a bill passed there. Huge puppy mill state. Finally was passed in '09, and that's the then Governor Doyle signing it there. And other states as well. Prop B in Missouri, you guys might be familiar with that. That was a ballot initiative that passed in Missouri last November. It would, in the largest puppy mill state in the country, would have enacted some pretty good standards for housing, no wire cage floors, etc., veterinary care, rest between breeding cycles, and most importantly, and what was most exciting to us, it would have it did, when it was passed, put a cap of 50 breeding dogs in every breeding facility in the state of Missouri. Now, 50 sounds like a lot to us, but in that state where there could have hundreds and hundreds of breeding dogs in their facilities, there would now be a limit where no breeding facility in the state of Missouri could have more than 50 intact breeding dogs there at one time. So we were very excited about that. It was a close vote, but it passed, and we thought that was just real wonderful until the new legislature went into session in January and made it their goal in life to kill this ballot initiative. They were not happy by the fact that the votes were mainly, the votes for the Prop B were mainly in the urban areas, and the rural votes were generally against it. Well, that's no big surprise, you can imagine where all the puppy mills. But you don't get to pick and choose which votes you like and which votes you don't like, unless you're in the Missouri legislature, where they just passed through the House and the Senate a bill to basically gut Prop B. So it took out the limit and most of the provisions. of that. It's on the governor's desk now, we're hoping they'll veto it, but if you have any friends or family in Missouri, and you can call them and ask the governor to veto it, that would be great. We don't have great votes for that. But sadly, when we see some victories for animals like that and puppy mills, the legislature can turn around and just say, well, Missouri voters, too bad your vote doesn't count. So that's a very sad thing. But here in the state of Michigan, Michigan Humane Society will soon be introducing their own legislation with language that is very similar to what did pass in Missouri. They will have caps and standards. And we suggested some things that we thought should be in the language, and Michigan Humane will put most of these things in. Adequate time, you can't have the stacked cages, the wire floors, sufficient room, exercise, rest between breeding cycles, and again, most importantly, a limit on the number of intact breeding animals that you can have in the facility. And Pam will go into more, when she talks about our kennel study, we found that that limit would not affect very many Michigan breeding facilities because Michigan generally does not have a huge puppy mill problem on the scale that other Midwestern states have. Not these mega mills with hundreds and hundreds of animals. So, but we have found more with our research and with our experience in busting these places that the more animals you get, the more problems you have. So that should be introduced, we hope soon. And but that's what we're doing as far as legislation here in Michigan. We did a study that Pam will go into details about in order to inform Michigan Humane Society's efforts, to give them the research they needed to write a good bill. Just a little more information about resources that we have on our website, Advocate Toolkit, just with some basics of how to talk to your legislators and how to get a bill passed or a local ordinance passed. Sorry, the URL is kind of long, but you should, right when you go to our very front page on the right side, you should see just take action. You should see it right there. So. I encourage everybody, if you can, to come to Humane Lobby Day on April 13th. We'll be doing it in conjunction with Puppy Mill Awareness. There's Pam last year with Rudolph, a deaf and blind puppy mill survivor, white dachshund, very cute. He lobbied at the Senate and the House for puppy mill legislation last year. So, but we'll be talking about a lot of different bills, puppy mills, and our other bills will be working on gas chamber ban, common seizure, etc. But definitely addressing puppy mills again. And if you can too, we have a great conference every year in Washington, D.C. called Taking Action for Animals, where we'll be lobbying the federal legislation then on puppy mills. I encourage you to visit that. It's in July. It's very hot in D.C. in July and muggy, but it's a lot of fun. So I encourage everybody to try to make it there as well. I hope I didn't take up too much time. Oh, did I? Oh, sorry. I'm screwing through that one. So does anyone have any questions about our puppy mill campaign or puppy mill legislation?
I have a question. Just store owners or pet stores that sell puppies, can you ask to see papers and where exactly the puppy came from? Will it state, the Hunt Corporation or?
Well, they have to have interstate veterinary records. If you bring in animals from out of state, they have to have a certain a veterinary exam through the whatever Department of Agriculture of the state they came from. But as far as I know, Pam has done a search for all those records. You have to FOIA them through the Department of Agriculture.
If you go to a pet store and they get them locally, they're not required by law to tell. We don't have the disclosure law that requires pet stores to tell you where the dogs
Where they got them from.
But if it's a purebred and you say, well, I'd like to see the registration papers, they'll dilly-dally. Sometimes you have to ask several times.
Right.
Eventually, if they bring out registration papers, it'll say the breeder's name on there. But a lot of them are designer dogs, and they're just not registered.
Designer would be expensive.
Yeah, like the mixed dogs aren't registered.
Right.
So they're not required by law to give you that information.
Well, do the large-scale mills do designer dogs? And so then they don't have to disclose that?
No.
Yeah, they do. Yes, they do, and no, they don't.
The pet stores don't have to tell you where they come from. But if they're coming from out of state, I have the shipping records, so I know where a lot of them come from. That's how I know.
This is probably more for you, but why is Petland and Total Small still operating?
Well, they probably have a 5-year lease. They keep
A lot more than 5 years.
Well, they just got a new owner in 2009, I think is when Heather Catallo exposed them, so it was in 2009. And so I think they gave them a new lease with the new owner maybe, so. But they have been there a long time. It's a destination location, and so the malls have a hard time filling those spaces, so they're more than happy to have some kind of destination place like a pet store where people will go there to that kind of corner. And to them, they're filling the space, you know, they're making money. I've met with mall management at 12 Oaks. It was the day that Heather Catallo was exposed, was coming out on the news too, and I'm like, I didn't ask for two, she found sick dogs, and, you know, maybe it's a better, you know, you change, and I think it's because they had a lease, they can't breach their lease or they'd owe a lot of money, so, but maybe when the lease is up, we've been protesting, maybe they will rethink it, because we keep coming out, you know, we're not going away.
Sure. And they're the only one left, right? And
Yeah, we closed
the
two.
rest of them.
How do you protest that?
You know where Denny's is at, on Novi Road, right off the
Yeah.
expressway? We park in the back of Denny's, they love us, and they bring out hot cocoa and everything. I don't know why they like it, I give good tips, I don't know, but we protest right out front by Denny's, and then it's the main entrance, so you just have to stay on public, you know, the easement.
They're right at the entrance by Sears, right?
Yeah, they can actually see us when we came in, as far as we could come in on, there's like a bank that closed, and we were like right in the parking lot, so they looked out, they'd see us, and they made us move up to the front. I don't know why, we were still on private, the police. The police made us move, because it was a private property, that, the bank that was there, but we couldn't get a hold of the owners to get permission, so, and they couldn't get a hold of the owners to file a complaint, so we just decided to move up front. Yeah, they know we're there. You can't go in the mall in Michigan. In California, they are protesting in the malls, but we can't protest in it's private property.
A lot of malls in California.
Wear a shirt around. You want to wear a shirt around.
Yeah.
Like, go ahead.
I think there are a lot of better malls than that.
Are you doing any education in the schools? Don't buy your puppy from a pet store.
Right, that's
Period.
a good one. You know, that dog Rudolph I was holding, there's a woman that does that. We had a workshop to teach other people that have survivors to go into schools with their dog. The problem is a lot of dogs some survivors are really shy, so it was kind of hard. We had some people interested in it. I was asked to go to an independence school near Clarkston, and so I'm putting something together for that. But I tried to kick off a program, but I'm working more on the pet stores, and I have literature about how to do that and how to get licensing. You have to get some insurance and things to do that. So I have some guidelines if someone wanted to go into the schools and do it, but I can't.
And we can do it. Our
Yes, she has.
Humane Education program, we have kind of recently published, and we have Adopt a Classroom where we send the issues regularly to a teacher in the classroom. And kind news features a lot of puppy mill education stuff. So if you know a classroom or a teacher in particular, we have the Adopt a Classroom program where we'll just send them regular materials, curriculum ideas.
Pam, we know about you in St. Joseph County, and we're supporting you.
Great. Well, thank you.